Okay, ABC prompts us to laugh, sometimes uncontrollably, uncomfortably, at the painful, awkward experiences of certain characters, because these experiences are not as disturbing for characters who suffer through them, or for people who may suffer through the same experiences in real life. Do you think the use of humor is appropriate? Explain and cite specific examples.
I think they're kind of appropriate. Like, obviously they're like mean, but like there has to be humor in every story, because without it, it would just be like a dry book, like hanging on to Max. For example, on page 168, when Shan Ki was putting the soap on his armpit because they have not heard of deodorant before.
Okay, so I had that same example. So mine was like on 172 and 173. So like when he put his arm around her and then like after she had like bubbles on her shoulder, like obviously that's like really uncomfortable and like awkward for him. Like if that were me, I would just be really embarrassed. But like I just think like it's good to like sometimes like learn to laugh at yourself, and I think like it's good that he's like having us laugh at these characters, because like eventually like in a situation like similar to the soap thing, like he's eventually gonna look back and laugh at that, and so I think like it's okay to like find humor in that.
I agree. I thought that the book would just be really like depressing, like on page 203 when like Tuki's like dancing. It's like obviously supposed to be funny. Like if you didn't use humor in the book, it would just be like a sad book of how all like minorities are oppressed, and that would be very good, I thought.
Yeah, I think the humor like helped point out the stereotypes, and like when you point out the stereotypes with humor, it wasn't to make fun of people, but to kind of get it out there that exists, the stereotype.
Yeah, kind of going off Mateo. Overall, I think the humor is a good way to do it, and luckily at the end it kind of ties everything together, showing that these are stereotypes, and that obviously they shouldn't be a thing to laugh about. But during the book, it can probably get a little confusing sometimes, because everything that Chinky is doing, kind of the laugh track at the bottom, shows like the audience is laughing what he is doing, and all these stereotypes, like on page 110, 111, when he's first in the classroom, and all of his L's are written as R's on the page, and it just shows that basically Asian people can't always pronounce their L's that well in class, and how they're answering every single question. So I think there's kind of a fine line, but the book does a good, or ends a good way at the end to kind of tie everything back.
I agree with Ryan. I thought they used the humor, however, to like illustrate like how awkward some characters were. Like on page 165, when Jin's with Amelia on his date, he doesn't really know what to do, and he's like making small talk. He's like really cringy. It's kind of just like he doesn't know what to do again. And then like he finally puts his arm around her, and he has like BO. So, and then also on page 7, it was like when the old guy was talking to the younger lady who had been serving him, and she said, "Your peaches look especially plump today, my dear." It's kind of just like awkward and cringy, but I see where they put it in. It's like lighten the mood.
Yeah, I think he also does a good job of like using humor, but not in sort of a racist or stereotypical way, like with what Tyler just said. And then on whatever 116, 117, when he pees in his soda, like besides him actually like sort of like the words like in like what being said in a Chinese accent, like the joke's not necessarily like racist at all. It's just like sort of funny. Like I don't think he really meant the joke to be racist. So I think it was sort of cool to see that he's also incorporating like humor in other ways rather than just racial or stereotypical ways. So it's sort of cool to see him bring light to the fact that you don't have to be racist, mean, or stereotypical to be funny.
That was also my example with the him peeing in the cup. I also kind of said like that you don't need just kind of racist things to make the joke funny or whatever. And then I also chose page 106 when Jin asked out Amelia, and then like he was laying in his bed and like the words were just saying like yes, yes, yes. And I just kind of like, I didn't laugh, but I just thought that was kind of funny, because situations happen like that. Like if a girl says hi to like the guy that she likes, you know, she gets all happy inside or something like that. So I just kind of thought that was pretty cool and funny for him to like bring that in there.
Yeah, so, I think what I kind of wrote is just that there's like a fine line between a joke and being offensive or stereotypical towards someone, and I think, this book did a great job of like, kind of, I don't know, just like, of like finding that balance between a joke and like being mean and offensive, just because like a bunch of the situations that happen in the book, if those were to happen outside, like in like the real world, like people would find that very offensive. I feel like people wouldn't be laughing at it, and so I think some of the jokes in the novel, like everybody else had, 172, when he had like, when he put soap as deodorant on his armpits, like that wasn't targeting any one specific group of people, and it didn't like attempt to make fun of anyone. And then, but then some jokes that were kind of more like uncomfortable was on page 30, panel 1 and 2, when the school teacher just assumed that Jin was from China, just because he was like the new Asian kid, when he was just from San Francisco. And then the class like continued to ask him if like he ate dogs and everything, and like if that were to happen in this classroom setting, people would not find that funny at all. So I think, I don't know, it's just like weird to see the difference between the book and like in real life.
I agree with that. Like my example is page 132, and like how like he was new to school and they thought he was eating a dog or something, and how like one of the bullies caught him buck teeth when he was in fact had buck teeth himself. I feel like the humor just made like the situation more tolerable and bearable for us to like read that, because it's kind of like hilarious that kids at such a young age already have such a like mind that's just stereotyping people, even if they don't really know them that well already. And I think the humor just made it like easier to like swallow, I guess.
I think we also don't look at the book as being really that offensive just because the author of the book is Asian or an Asian American. So obviously if the book was written by probably a white male or somebody else, we would probably look at it differently as a super racist book. But I think overall the author, what was his name? Yeah, Jin Wang I think he was kind of just taking all the stereotypes that people have almost thrown at him, or he's been told his whole life, and put it into a book saying that, I mean, these necessarily aren't okay. So I think it was kind of a good way that the book was in humor, and it was a good way to look at it.
Personally, I don't think though, like if he was trying to get a point across that like these stereotypical things that people are saying aren't okay, I feel like if that's like the message he was trying to get across, I feel like humor would not be like the best way to approach it. Like, do you guys think that he did it? Do you guys think that like using humor was a good way to get his point across though?
I think he was using it as like a way to like soften it, 'cause like it's kind of it's a hard thing to talk about for a lot of people. It's just like kind of a touchy subject, so I think he used humor as a way to like soften it, like make it seem like less like dauntable, like a task to talk about, like kind of like just like made it into like a more manageable thing to read.
Well, I think part of the story, or like the moral, I think it was as much like that you shouldn't like stereotype people. I think it was more of just like be proud of where you come from, and just like be confident in yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because, just like you could see when everybody, like all the main characters were trying to turn themselves into something they weren't, that's when all the conflict happened, and that's when they were like the least happy throughout the whole book. So I think, yeah, definitely the message is just to be like true to yourself and like be proud of where you come from, because that's when they were happiest.
We're at like 9:08, so you guys got about like maybe 5 minutes.
Okay, I got a question, I guess. If
You
saw,
go.
like, something like this kind of racism happening in real life, like how would you react? Like if you saw a kid in your classroom just being talked about and all that stuff, how would you step in? Or if you didn't step in, like how would you feel about it?
I feel like that question goes with like the Dateline thing we watched with what would my kid do, and how it's like saying how like you think your kid would like step up and like say something, but like they just don't want to say anything and it's uncomfortable because people just don't want to, they don't want to seem like not a part of the group. Like if everyone's making fun of someone, they want to like fit in, I guess. And I feel like most of us probably wouldn't conform to that, but like that NBC Dateline show we watched kind of showed that. So
I agree with Zaina's point. in my opinion, I feel that, like, if I saw someone getting made stereotyped on, I probably wouldn't do anything, because they could stereotype you if you said something.
I think it would just take one person to say something and everyone else to be able to say something as well, because that one person kind of like broke the ice and they kind of took like the first big step.
Well, I have a question for you guys. If you're open to it, I guess. Yeah. So like, just it relates. So, something that Daria said about how if things like this happened in our school, a lot of people wouldn't really find that funny. And a real life example would be currently at Maple Grove Senior High, there's still that investigation about the racist drawings that were in the bathroom stall the day after the election. And while many people thought that that was very racist and very rude, there were many that thought that it was funny and that it shouldn't have been that big of a deal. So I guess my question would be, can you see any correlation between real life high school like ours or Maple Grove and the high school within this book?
Yeah, like there's definitely like some similarities. How like if someone's being like made fun of or like someone's being stereotyped, like people might not really step up, kind of like what we were just talking about, and like how like if someone like when those stereotypes are made.
Sorry, you just need to grab something.
And like how when like those stereotypes are made, like I forgot what I was gonna say. Someone else will just know.
You were on the right track.
I mean, I think every school can have outliers. I'm trying to find the page when Greg sort of like tells him not to go out with Amelia anymore. But I think like they're always gonna have the outliers, like the people who did the drawings or whatever at Maple Grove. I mean, like 99% of the people in a high school would never do that. Like I know basically everyone I associate with would never think about doing that, and they don't think that's funny at all. But there's always going to be outliers like the Gregs who doesn't want Amelia to date Jin just because he's Asian. They're always going to be those outliers wherever you go. I mean, whether you're in the country, the city, there's always going to be people who are going to take it too far and who don't have a certain respect or certain values.
You guys have like a minute left, so if you want to end it there, we can.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm on you guys. I'm like.